Hey, this is Jay here. Just wanted to pop in before the episode to give a bit of a warning. We had some audio issues while recording. I did my best to clean it up, but you may hear some clicking in the background throughout the episode. Hopefully, it's not too big of a deal. But yeah, anyway, enjoy the podcast. Now, before we begin, I wanted to find a way to make this episode just a little bit interactive. But that's kind of difficult to do with podcasts. So, how we're going to do this is our guests are going to get to decide at certain points. And the first choice you get is who is going to read the intro. Either me, Jay, or my co host, John.
These two of us, we have to
to
find a consensus.
Okay. Do we say it at the same time?
Yeah.
Count down. 3, 2, 1. Jay.
John.
Oh no.
Okay.
We're off to a great start.
So, John, you could be the tiebreaker.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm doing it.
Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You want to go do a podcast?
Sure.
Jump in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Barbies and Kens, Chelseas of all ages, and everyone else. Welcome to Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast. I'm your host, John, and with me I have my wonderful co-host. Chelsea was right. Sisters gotta stay together. Jay!
Hello.
For those of you just joining us, we are a podcast about Barbie movies. Every week we watch one of the animated Barbie movies and we rate its story, characters, animation, voice acting, and music to see how it stacks up. This week we'll be talking about the 41st animated Barbie movie, Barbie Epic Road Trip. And with us to talk about this interactive movie, we have two returning guests. You may remember them from our Diamond Castle episode, Emma and Bethany.
Hi.
Back by popular demand.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but before we dive into the context, I wanted to do a little bit of an icebreaker. So we already asked you on the Diamond Castle episode what your Barbie history is. So I want to know, what is your experience with interactive narratives? So like choose your own adventure books or video games. Have you ever watched an interactive movie before?
This was definitely my first interactive movie experience, so I had a lot of fun with it. But I'm not new to the entire interactive genre. I read a lot of interactive books growing up. One in particular, I remember we had a super tattered copy of The Creature from Miller's Pond.
Ooh.
Loved that one. Went through every possible ending. And then also because I was homeschooled, we had a lot of educational interactive stories. So there were some that were historical stories and put you in the shoes of a Civil War soldier or different things like that. A lot of them had to do with battles and ended with your death quite frequently. So experienced a lot of pretty violent interactive stories growing up, but I always had fun with them.
I feel like I have a very limited history with interactive narratives. I feel like I can only think of maybe one or two. I know that there was some, I don't know when this was made, but there's an interactive choose your own adventure book about Calvin College.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how it came into the possession of my freshman year RA, but he had it, and that was one of our first things that we did as a floor together.
Interesting.
That was really funny. But then yeah, this was my first interactive movie, and then we have that game, House of Danger.
Oh, that's true.
It's you buy it at a board game store, but it's basically cards, and
it's based off of the Choose Your Own Adventure books, but they turned it into a game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we've played that a few times now.
Yeah,
and it's pretty fun.
It's fun.
So,
Now, John, I know you play video games. Have you ever done any sort of interactive narrative experiences?
So I've known about these type of games for a long time. They're most commonly known in RPGs and MMOs, games like Knights of the Old Republic, Fallout, games like that. I never really got into that until much later because I am a freak for continuity. And let's just say choose your own adventure doesn't really work for what timeline is canon and which one's just fodder, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't really get into interactive adventures until recently, when Markiplier has been releasing a couple adventures like a heist with Markiplier, Markiplier in space, and so yeah, of course, again for this film, Netflix. Uh, this is probably my first Netflix interactive thing. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm also play a lot of video games, and so I have come across quite a few interactive narratives, and I did read Choose Your Own Adventure growing up. And yeah, I have actually played another Netflix interactive movie. So,
What was it?
well, we'll talk about that
Oh,
in a second
okay.
here, because I did want to dive into the context. This Barbie Epic Road Trip was released October 25th, 2022. This was Halloween. So I guess having seen it now, that kind of there's a few little elements
Mhm.
there.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the second Barbie movie to have been released since we started recording this podcast. It was released the same day as our Halloween episode, and actually 2 days before our Diamond Castle episode.
Whoa.
So a bit of a coincidence that you're back for this one now. Um, yeah, it was directed by Conrad Helton, he's just been a mainstay of a lot of these Barbie movies as a director. As other people have come and gone, he's kind of stayed on board. And it's written by Anne Austen and Ari Wallington. We've talked about Anne Austen before. She's written the last few of these movies. And then Wallington is a TV writer who worked on a bunch of shows: Sex in the City, Veronica Mars, Heroes. And actually, she wrote two of my favorite Gravity Falls episodes. The one with like the wax sculptures coming to life, and then the one with the pig and the time traveler. So,
That's a
So
great
good.
one. Yeah.
and yeah, we also have narrative design by Win Rush, who previously worked on a Family Guy mobile game. That's their only other credit. So, but yeah, that's sort of the person who's designing all of the different branching paths and how they all connect back together.
Mhm.
And then we have music by Ryan Franks and Scott Nickley, who they've actually both done uncredited composing work for other recent Barbie movies. I believe they're part of the Math Club, which has been producing a lot of the recent soundtracks. They're like a group that, like a corporation that does music. So, like trailer music, when you hear a song for like 5 seconds in a trailer, they'll just bring on the Math Club to make those 5 seconds, or remixes, just kind of different various things. And yeah, now I do have some more context, but before I dive into it, I need to ask you both, my guests,
Ooh.
do you want a detailed dive in, or just the surface level?
I feel like I have so much to talk about this movie. So I feel like a surface level might be the best.
Don't want
option.
to have this end up being 3 hours or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh no, I understand.
Okay.
I was worried I had too much written out, so
Uh-huh.
that helps. This is Barbie's first interactive movie, and interactive cinema has actually been around for a very long time. It started in the 1910s, actually, with cinematic shooting galleries, where they would display a film, and then at certain points you would shoot out the screen, and then it would stop and then register that you got a point.
What?
Like a very rudimentary version of the Duck Hunt Nintendo game. But the first sort of more traditionally cinematic example is the 1967 Czech film Kino Automat, where a moderator would come out on stage at certain points and the audience would vote, and then they would switch the reels depending on what choice.
That's so cool.
And then yeah, as computers developed, we kind of got more interactive media. A lot of early video games, full motion video games, which were very popular until they almost destroyed the gaming industry. Um, that's a whole can of worms that we won't dive into right now. But
Yeah.
that and Mortal Kombat, just for violence reasons. There's also like the visual novel genre, and John mentioned RPGs, so Mass Effect and
Oh yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic, and yeah, and then eventually this kind of comes back around. There was a bit of a boom sort of when DVDs were getting popular, since they could handle interactive choices pretty well. But the most recent boom has actually been because of Netflix. They saw the opportunity to develop the medium just because they had the technology. So they released a couple movies in 2017: Puss in Boots, Trapped in an Epic Tale, and Minecraft Story Mode, an adaptation of the video game of the same name. Um, and the first major release was the Black Mirror episode Bandersnatch. That was sort of their big launch of this technology. That was in late 2018. And then they've sort of been making more. Um, it's they tend to go more for kids shows. I think kids tend to engage with the narratives a bit better. So
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't been super popular, but it has been popular enough that they keep making more and experimenting with things.
Yeah, Telltale is also another one of these gaming companies that does these type of stories. And I
Yeah.
believe Netflix at one point had their Minecraft story mode interaction on Netflix. I don't know how that worked
Yeah,
because
that is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
there was a lot more involvement in the game itself. But yeah, something happened.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I have heard that it's a bit more interactive than what we just played with Epic Road Trip.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Actually, thinking back on it, um, I did play an interactive game that was featured on the Shrek 2 DVD where there was this American Idol uh, thing with Simon Cowell in it where he's judging the characters from the film and you get to vote for which character would win.
That's incredible.
Wow. That's reminding me, you can totally cut this
Yes.
from the
Oh,
episode
no,
if it's
no.
too long, but my family had the Veggie Tales, Little Joe, whatever that, that story, and it had games on that as well. And there was a game where, depending on like what items you picked that you supposedly saw in a dream, you'd get like a dream interpretation, that this is what was going to happen to you. So yeah, and it was all read by the French peas and their whole French accents.
Yeah, that's like early DVD was a huge space. One of the Final Destination movies has a bonus feature where you could make different decisions. There was actually a Choose Your Own Adventure movie released, and more recently there was the Batman: The Death in the Family adaptation, an animated adaptation of one of the most infamous DC comics.
Well,
Where
it's more of like a remake of the Under the Red Hood film, but
okay, but
with
yeah,
other crap.
the comic is Jason Todd, who took up the mantle of Robin after Dick Grayson, and he was unpopular. So DC gave fans the option to call in and decide if he would live or die. And then someone apparently set up like a phone to just constantly ring the die option. So the next issue of the
Yikes.
comic came out, and Jason Todd is brutally beaten to death by the Joker with a crowbar. And yeah, changed the history of DC and comics quite drastically. And so now they've adapted it into a movie where you get to decide,
Oh my goodness.
just like that.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, interactive narratives have been going on for a while, and now Barbie is taking not her first plunge in. She's actually had like video games where you can kind of do different narrative things, but this is sort of the big jump in recently, and we have three possible plot lines here. So the background: this takes place after the Barbie It Takes Two show, which is itself a sequel to the Barbie Big City Big Dream, sort of this big franchise that they're trying to create. So we have Malibu Barbie and Brooklyn Barbie. They're going on a road trip to go back to New York City, and Ken and Barbie's sister Skipper are joining them. And Ken is sort of wanting to go deeper in his relationship with Barbie, and Skipper is trying to develop her new app that matches pets or dogs with potential owners. And then Brooklyn Barbie is wanting to get to New York as soon as possible for an audition to be in a music video. So these sort of three plot lines, you kind of are choosing between the three of them. Are you going to explore the romance with Ken, or are you going to go to the audition, or are you going to focus on getting all of the dogs to the right owners? Yeah, each of the choices you make sort of impact these plot lines. So there isn't a really good way to dive into the story here because all of our experiences with the story will be different.
Yeah.
So I wanted to quick go through and actually start with the endings that we each got.
Oh.
So I first got I went to New York City and um, failed the audition, which tends to happen.
Oh wow.
Not completely, but you end up as background dancers, as trees in the
Oh my
video.
goodness.
Dream job.
And then I think after that, Malibu moved back to Malibu to be with Ken, and Brooklyn stayed in Brooklyn. So that was the first
Wow.
ending I got.
Okay. The ending that I got was I followed a lot of the like let's get the dogs into their homes kind of narratives.
Yeah.
And so but I did end up back in New York then because if I'm remembering correctly, we gotten a call from the talent agent person.
Yeah.
And got to New York just in time for the audition, which I believe went very well. And so both Barbies stayed in New York. And then I wasn't entirely clear on what happened to Ken, honestly, but it was clear that like the potential blossoming romance didn't really go anywhere, and it was like, well, we're still
Bye.
friends, but like nothing really happened here.
By the
So-
way, pick this other ending.
Yep.
yes, exactly.
The one that I ended up with was both Barbies ended up in London. Yeah, they ended up in London as singers. They were starting a musical career there, and neither Ken nor Skipper were there. It was honestly, it felt kind of abrupt, and I can maybe get into this later, but it was a long time coming. I was watching that movie for a long time.
I actually went to check in on Bethany because we were watching it at the same time in separate rooms. And I thought that she was like continuing to go on to play through every possible ending because she was taking so long. But no, she just, got stuck. So,
well, I also I dyed my hair that night, and I was like, what? I washed it out in the middle.
oh, that's true.
Like, I took
There
a
were some
break and washed my
interruptions.
hair. So,
So I got the New Orleans ending where they get rid of the dogs by going to New Orleans, and these people on this film set want the dogs. And Ken, with the goodness of his hearts, offers to bring the Barbies all the way to New York. They didn't even ask. He's like, I'll get you to New York. I'm that good of a guy. They do that. They get the job. And then the thing just ends. It's like, yeah, me and Ken, we had an ending. But, like, could it be better if you went to the state fair in Pennsylvania? Big option right there pops up on the screen. I'm like, oh, that's kind of lame.
Now, did you end it there? Because I'm realizing that's the exact same ending I had, and I chose to go on to the state fair.
I chose to go to the state fair as well.
Oh.
Not as that's where I ended in my timeline, but I chose to witness the other timeline to see how it was. That's the proper ending of this film for sure. But I was confused why the Ken storyline got just pushed aside because Ken did it like a really romantic thing. He drove Barbie, who didn't even ask to go to New York, for this thing. And they just shrug it off like nothing happened. So
and it does depend on your choices. All of these things, who you're prioritizing, and even like choices you don't think are gonna have much of an impact end up having an impact. And I tried to play through a few more. I got 4 different endings going back to try different things, and sometimes it isn't always obvious why you got one ending over another. I was trying to. There's a few guides online, but they're not complete, so it can be a bit difficult to try and get the ending you're going for. But I got 4 different endings, so I have a bit of an idea of where the paths branch.
did you get the endings that we had?
Yeah, I got the London ending, and I
Okay.
did also get because I also went to New Orleans first. Although that's where we can talk
Well,
about the
yes.
looping.
Yeah.
Mm.
I also went to New
So,
Orleans.
how many of you encountered the aliens?
I did.
Nope.
Okay,
Oh wow, I mean,
so
you're the only one.
No, I guess
yeah,
I avoided them.
so what happens is you encounter the aliens, and it takes you back to the start of the game, and now you play through again, and it has ramifications down the line. Actually, in New York, it'll sometimes give you a prompt of, do you want to run or take the subway? If you take the subway, having encountered the aliens will come and pick you up and take you to the audition.
Wait, what?
That's incredible. Oh, I'm so happy.
So yeah, there's like these little things in like the looping, and then the other loop, well, there's actually more loops. I didn't necessarily encounter all of them, but another one is the vampires in New Orleans, where if you didn't watch the campfire scene, because that's where you learn the secret knock. If you didn't learn the secret knock, then they knock on the door and a hole opens in the floor, and you pop back to Roswell and have to listen to the story again. So you could get
Oh,
stuck in a
no.
loop.
Yeah, that's like I got stuck in the alien loop because I tried to on purpose get abducted by aliens. Like when
Yeah.
the intro, when like Skipper was like, "Oh, what if you get abducted by alien?" Or not Skipper,
Chelsea,
Chelsea
yeah.
was like, "What if you get abducted by aliens?" I was like, "Oh boy, I wonder if this is like one of the options. I'm gonna try really hard to like get abducted by aliens," and I did.
You
And then I was like, "Oh
succeeded.
shoot, it's a time loop." And then I got, I went to New Orleans and got eaten by the vampire house, and I was like, "Oh boy, I gotta do this again."
John, did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, so I got abducted by aliens. Like I knew that was gonna happen, but like Barbie's character in the interactive segment really wanted to go check out that noise, and
Yes.
so like I had to go with the character's desires as well. So I went with that. She got abducted. Whole time loop. They acknowledge that there's a time loop, and then they act like nothing happens as they repeat the exact same dialogue. And
Yeah.
so I pretended that they just did exactly the same thing, but instead of going on the sunset, they listened to the story because they know aliens are afoot,
Yeah.
and that's what led me to New Orleans.
Yeah. So it sounds like we all eventually ended up in New Orleans with the
Oh yeah.
vampires.
I mean, when prompted to go to New Orleans, I'm not ever gonna say no.
Oh yeah, no, it's wonderful. And like when they're there and it's like vampires, I was so excited.
Well, the logical choice is like, oh, let's drop off 2 dogs versus this one big dog.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That
And
that
they're
was
they're
my
two
choice.
sister dogs, so you want to
Yeah.
keep them together.
And this is all very interesting to hear because one of the questions that I had, well, it was something that I found kind of delightful, was in my mind, the just like unexplained existence of vampires in the story because I listened to the campfire story and then I went to New Orleans, so I knew the knock. So I didn't encounter any aliens or vampires aside from that creepy guy on the side of the road who's like raking leaves in the middle of the night and then flies away as a bat. And you're like, oh, so that's, to me, that was the only real vampire. I did not realize that there were other
Well,
real
there
vampires.
aren't. It's just a house. It's the same house, and then a trap door opens, and you fall into the other ending. But it does have this like element of mystery of like, why did the door open? There must be real vampires there.
Okay. All right, I see.
This is, I think, the second Barbie movie to have a thrown-off joke of a vampire existing.
Oh.
Chelsea's Lost Birthday was the other
Yes.
one. Yeah.
That was
Chelsea's.
there's a guy, a tour guide, who's telling them all about, oh, this island has scary vampires. Oh no, I'm just kidding. And then he walks a few feet away, and there's a guy under an umbrella with very pale skin. Do you have sunscreen? SPF 1 million. So kind of similar structure of the joke there. I don't think we've had aliens since the sci-fi one.
I don't think so either. No.
Yeah, I just, so much of the fun of this for me was experiencing like all of the random things that happen. I mean, it's a road trip movie, so you have to have, and it's kind of perfect for one of these like interactive things because you're choosing your destinations. So you get to kind of, do we go to Chicago or do we go to the diner? Actually, I don't think you can choose either of those options. You just have to get put on those paths. But
I feel like speaking of places, one of the things, like a really small detail, I don't know if this is like gonna is worth saying, but like at the very beginning when they're like when Ken's got his big map and it like shows, like the picture of the United States and there's like a picture for every state, it made me laugh so hard that the picture for Ohio was like, I don't know what it was exactly, but it was basically like equating Ohio with the Amish. And, I thought that was hilarious as somebody growing up very close to Ohio. But,
Yeah, I didn't encounter any Amish people on my epic road trip, but
no.
I mean,
It's
honestly, I
disappointing.
think I saw most of the things that it has to offer, but there are so many routes you can take that maybe there's something hidden in there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, did any of you end up in Vegas?
No. Tell
That's
us about that.
the way to unlock. So there are sort of 6 possible endings, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's like more variations. And it's different things, like going to London. That's if you play the long song at the fair, then you get scouted by this talent scout. And then depending on your relationship with Ken, maybe you move back to Malibu. But the sort of the best ending, quote unquote, is you impress oh, now I'm forgetting her name, the pop singer, and she agrees
Letitia?
to.
No, it's something
No,
else.
it starts with a J.
Jacinda.
Jacinda, yes,
Ah.
Jacinda. Um, and she lets you in her music video. But then you also have enough of a relationship with Ken that he actually moves to New York. So Barbie
Whoa.
gets both of her dreams.
Wow.
Just like in her vision.
Yep. Yeah, it is the sort of the completion of that vision. And in fact, I don't know if you can get that ending with in the same plot you can get the vision. So it's kind of encouraging you, you see the vision in the one plot and you're like, how do I get that? So then you can try to get the other. But yeah, there's 6 different endings and they kind of all go in weird places. Like, yeah, you end up in London, or Skipper's business takes off and Barbie actually moves back to Malibu to help Skipper with her business.
Huh.
Yeah. It was just fun to see all of these different branching paths for me, and like eventually I did like the novelty of it did kind of wear off and I was like skipping ahead through the scenes I'd already seen.
Do you know approximately how many hours you spent trying out
Oh
different
my
endings for
goodness.
this?
I maybe 3. I think
Wow.
I saw there's a total of 136 minutes of animation in the movie. So if you were to watch everything end to end, that would be like only the distinct scenes end to end. That would be how long it would be.
Well, I'm impressed by the dedication.
Yes.
Yeah, I had fun with it. I enjoy this kind of like one of my favorite video games of all time is 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, which is a horror puzzle game, but it has that same like branching paths, and it actually very much encourages you to try the different paths. And the only way to get the true ending is to play through multiple paths, and there's like a key in one that then goes into the other. It has one of my favorite twists of all time, and then its sequel has maybe like 5 of my favorite twists of all time. Like, I'll spoil it here, but it's not actually a big spoiler. The fact that they are on the moon isn't the biggest twist of the story.
Whoa.
Wow.
But yeah, so I've enjoyed these kinds of narratives before, so I just like diving in, and it's a different experience than any of these other Barbie movies. So yeah, I did want to briefly talk about sort of some of the themes at play here. There's obviously the dreams versus destiny, the first choice you make that actually has no impact on the story, but it gets you used to like what are the things, what's at stake, what are the choices you can make. And I don't know, it's like it's the comfort of home or the excitement of something new. It's Brooklyn is presenting one and Ken is presenting the other. It's kind of like you're it's a very relatable thing for anyone who's sort of been moving from high school to college or college to adulthood, which is kind of odd for a movie that's designed for younger kids. But
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely had that thought watching it of just thinking about the themes of the movie of like kind of figuring out what do you want and
Mhm.
like making decisions based on that and not really knowing what the outcome of those decisions are going to look like. Like that's something that all kids go through as you're, that's
Mhm.
part of growing up. And so I definitely was thinking about how that would probably be, that's relatable to a lot of kids that are going to be watching this. And it's kind of part of the beauty of fiction is like experiencing these stories and making these decisions without any real world consequences to yourself. But it's kind of like practice for the
maybe
real
you
thing.
feel a little bit bad about letting Ken
Mm.
down too many times. That was my
Yeah.
problem.
Everybody was so cool about all the decisions you
Oh,
made.
they
Oh,
were
yeah.
so
They were
cool.
just like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Ken
Oh,
was a
boy.
little bit. Ken makes you feel guilty.
Yeah.
Ken's the one where you're like, oh, I feel like I'm letting him down. Because I was gonna, the first run through, I was gonna go with Brooklyn the entire time. And the first time I went with Brooklyn, and Ken was so disappointed. I'm like, fine. I feel bad for you, Ken.
Those puppy dog eyes.
I was a bit disappointed that there wasn't like much conflict which came from your choices.
Mm.
Like we said earlier, like you choose something, almost every time it's treated positively by the other person that you disagreed with, and I'm just like, oh, come on, show a little bit of frustration here. Yeah, Ken, you get sad every once in a while, but you're still putting up your happy act. Like, come on.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's a limitation of, this is a Barbie game, so the audience is,
Yeah.
you're looking for something a bit lighter. If you decide to go with Brooklyn's express route and Ken's like sulking the entire rest of the game, that's just kind of sad.
Yeah.
There were certain moments. Did any of you end up at the diner?
No.
Because that's
No.
one where you can make a decision that makes Skipper very angry, and she'll storm off,
Oh.
and then you have to go and you talk to her, and then by the next decision it's all fine no matter what you do. But there are certain moments throughout the story where they are sort of
Hmm.
playing at that a bit more. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of major choices in this game that you have to choose between, and it's never unclear what option you're choosing. The consequences might be unclear right away, but you kind of know when you're siding with Brooklyn or siding with Ken, and how that might play out down the road.
And I will say, as much as I enjoyed the getting to make decisions part of this, I also definitely got sucked into it a bit too much at times and like watched as the little, progress bar like went almost all the way down. And I'm like, I can't decide which one do I want. And then finally just had to pick one. But it's kind of stressful too, even if it's fiction.
Yeah, there is that. I definitely feel that sort of like that social pressure almost, even though these are fictional characters. I can go back and make the other decision later if I want, but there's like that, I don't want to let my friends down even though they're not my friends.
I don't want to hurt these fictional characters.
Yeah, I was reading though online reviews of this, of some people really don't like Ken, so
In this movie in particular, or just in
it's
general?
it's a whole Barbie franchise thing, because a lot of people ship the Barbies, obviously.
Well, yeah.
So, and there's no real way to make that decision. Like, there's no romantic relationship you can pursue between them in this movie, so some people were disappointed and they took it out on Ken. But you do miss certain things if you only take that one route as well.
I will admit, I think I mentioned this to Emma after I had finished watching the movie, but it took me like probably 5 or 10 minutes to realize that Barbie and Ken were not siblings. In this movie, they look so similar. And they're just so friendly, It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
The childhood friend thing, which, yeah, I was curious because John and I have been starting a bit after Diamond Castle. They started interconnecting these movies more and more, and then by the time we get to Dolphin Magic, which was 2017, they actually just, everything's connected, and they have TV shows that are connecting back in, and characters are making connections. So this relationship with Ken has been developing from like early episodes of a TV show that came out years
Yeah.
and years before this.
Yeah, and so that's why, like, I knew that this was a plot line in the shows that they were hinting at or teasing a little bit, and so I knew that, like, okay, here they want to go that route. So I tried my best to go that route, but then they
Yeah.
didn't go when I got to the ending. It was like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, there is some of the endings. It's a bit odd. You go, why did I get that ending? But there is a logic behind the decisions that are being made.
Most decisions, yes.
Yeah. It's maybe I do think there is something to the endings can kind of feel a bit abrupt or perfunctory. And I think it is like you're supposed to play it multiple times, so that's supposed to bring you the catharsis, but I don't know. I had more fun playing through it than when I got like, oh, I finally got the best ending. Well, I had more fun playing the game than actually getting the quote unquote good ending.
When you got the quote unquote best ending, did it still give you the option like,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you would try? Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
so-
it's not like you did it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have made any other decisions.
Because most of the other endings, it's like Barbie wonders, oh, what if I had gotten to the audition? Or, oh, what if I had spent time with Ken? That one, it's Skipper then wonders, oh, what if we had given the dogs to different owners? How would that have played out? So it is constantly pushing you to like, try one more time.
That's how they keep you hooked.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's part of Netflix's business model is making sure you keep subscribed. So
Although probably not anymore.
well, their business model is that's a can of worms we don't have to open right now. Yeah, I don't know. I just liked how relatable this is. Like often in video games, when I'm playing a video game, it's like, do you decide to side with the person who is going to remake the world as this brutal place where the strongest survive, or do you decide to like everyone gets their own world where they are completely alone? It's like, what? I get what these decisions are saying philosophically, but like, what? Whereas this one, it's, do you go to camp in New Mexico, even though it'll take up some time, or do you hurry to the audition? It's like,
and you could even like, I don't know, I feel like for my own logic and like making decisions, like I tried to be balanced and like, oh, okay, like in my relationships, like, okay, so I made this decision for Ken, but maybe I'll like, Ken got his time, we had a good talk, maybe let's focus on Skipper or Brooklyn Barbie now, like in real life.
yeah.
But then also keeping in mind, what was the original point of this trip? Oh, to go and give dogs to owners, and then Ken had this whole plan for this trip, for this whole thing in. And so everything going on with Brooklyn was just last minute from a phone call. And it's like, nah, you're intruding on the original plan, so I'm not going to follow you, Brooke.
So that's your logic going into this, because my logic was, oh, this is Barbie's dream is to be the singer. So I was like, oh, she should prioritize her dreams over her relationship. But then I felt so bad for Ken that I ended up siding with him more often than not. So even though I had my logic going in, I abandoned it pretty quickly as the emotions of the story kind of came in to play.
And then I pretty much sidelined Ken in all of the different choices that I made. I like threw him one small bone at the county fair by going on the Ferris wheel with him, and then decided that we needed to take things slow, and he wasn't super thrilled. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the interesting thing about this is like comparing notes about who went where and what did who. And now I do want to ask before we move on from the story, were there any like events that really stood out to you? So like any of the specific scenes rather than the overall narrative?
Definitely the Grand Canyon hang glider dog swap situation.
I did the burros, so I'm excited to hear about what this hang glider.
Why would you choose
because,
donkeys over a hang glider?
Oh, you know me. You know how I love donkeys. I don't know. I thought they were cute.
Oh man, yeah. Never mind that these are young people who probably have no hang glider experience. I
Well,
went with the
it's
hang
No, they
glider.
Barbie.
did. Yeah, didn't they said in the movie like, oh yeah, don't you remember when we hang glided or whatever?
Yeah, this is Barbie. She's had every career known to man. They make jokes about it constantly in the movies. But yeah, I did actually both because the first time I came across the scene, I wasn't paying close enough attention and I missed the decision, so it defaulted to the donkeys. But then I encountered it later and did the hang glider, and that was definitely the more thrilling of the two. The hang glider fails, and you have to. One of the dogs is tagging along and actually like helps to land the hang glider.
Whoa.
And then the helicopter pilot, because it's the two sister dogs who have been split up because one likes heights and the other doesn't, but the wrong dog got handed over, so you have to go and swap it. And then the helicopter pilot is like, actually, no, I don't want these dogs. But if you've done the hang glider thing, then he's like, but that dog that helped you with the hang glider.
Billy.
Oh.
I wrote down his name because Billy is the champ.
Did you get to wear a cowboy hat when you were on the hang glider?
No.
Ooh, you missed out big time.
I guess I did.
Did you encounter the Grand Canyon, John?
Of course, yeah. I went
Okay.
the burro route.
Yeah, that makes sense with what I know of you.
Half the characters were wanting to go on the burros. Barbie mentioned it was the safest route. I just went with that.
Yep. Did any of you go to Dino Park?
Yeah, it was really brief,
Briefly.
I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like when I was given a choice to either explore the park further or stay there and move on. I did not stay, so
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like the only thing that I really remember about that is that I just like was struck by how Ken is a man of such simple pleasures, and I appreciate that about him.
Yeah, that one I was disappointed because I chose to stay, but you don't actually see inside the park. It's just like
Nope.
they cut to black, and then it's like, oh, we had such a good time in the park.
Oh no!
So I was sad.
Aw.
But
But
you
then there
get
was
to choose between a toy and a thing.
and a fortune teller, so I chose the
Yeah.
fortune teller, and that was fun.
Oh.
And there's actually a callback later depending on the choices you make, but it doesn't impact anything besides that.
The toy gets you like a little meet cute.
Oh, okay. With who?
What?
With Ken?
Yeah.
Oh.
so not a
Darn.
meet cute, a re-meet cute.
Yeah.
I also just really enjoyed both of the like Roswell, yes, Roswell, and then the like New Orleans vampire, just the like embracing of the alien culture
Yeah.
and then the vampires, and I was just like, yes, bringing in two of my favorite
Yeah.
genres or whatever you want to call that. So I enjoyed all of that.
I was so excited when the vampire showed up because
Mhm.
I just love that kind of stuff, and we don't get that in Barbie movies.
Yeah,
I
wasn't
keep saying
expecting
the
it.
next Barbie movie needs to be a Halloween movie
Yes,
because I think that's like the dress up aspect. You can bring that in and like just a little bit spooky, like Scooby Doo spooky.
Oh, that would be epic.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different places. You can go to Chicago. There's a ball game you attend there.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, I thought they were like historic baseball field, and I was like, oh.
John, did you have any favorite scenes?
No, not really.
No. Aliens? Did you like the aliens?
No. It brought me back to the beginning, so no.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like anyone else encountered them in New York. Though you can see them in the background of one of the shots if you click the run option when you're in New York City.
Oh.
And you can actually, when you do that, they're running through the city and you see different people from throughout the story.
Speaking of things in the background, though, that was something I really appreciated about this movie was how many little bits of humor were dropped into the background of the scenes. Like there's somebody with pizza, right, being attacked by seagulls at the beach, and then there's the guy with his briefcase in the subway who keeps like barely missing every single car.
They're calling Rafa, and it's in the background of Rafa's phone video.
Yep.
is this man desperately attempting to get on the subway with his briefcase.
And then finally manages to get through the
Yeah.
door and leaves his briefcase sitting
No.
on the station. Yeah.
Those, I wish there were more, just because you're rewatching these a lot. So the
Mm.
more you rewatch, the more you're like, oh, I'm seeing these background details. But I did really appreciate when they showed up.
Yeah.
Oh, I really enjoyed the story. I think the complexity of it and the themes are just very um, well designed. So I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, getting a little bit of a boost for being a
Mm.
interactive thing. But I do think they do a really good job of sort of integrating character arcs and making it fit with your choices throughout.
Mm-hmm.
You gave it a 5 out of 5, Emma?
I did. Okay, but let me explain. I think I did that purely because of the interactive
Mm.
story elements. Like, just I was so thrilled with getting to be part of the story and have a say in the story that I gave it a 5. So
It brings you into the narrative. You're more invested because you're making these choices.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. I really liked it. I think at the end, just with my ending, I was just like kind of taken out of it. Like, oh, this just kind of
Yeah.
felt out of nowhere.
And the London ending is one of the more abrupt, because you don't even
Yeah.
get to New York.
Yeah. No, you just go from the State Fair to London.
I give it a 3. I didn't factor the interactive aspect into the score, but I factored in the lack of major conflicts made by your choices and just how the ending was a bit abrupt. And it's a pretty simple story, but yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the complexity comes in the road trip style and like
the relationships.
yeah. Which, speaking of relationships, next up we have characters. First up is Malibu Barbie, and so yeah, Malibu Barbie. She's the audience surrogate. She's the one who's making the decisions, and thus we are making the decisions for her. And her character here just depends on the choices you make,
Mm-hmm.
and it changes. You know, if you're pursuing that relationship with Ken, then it's different, or if you're not pursuing that relationship, then it's there are moments where it's just like, oh, she's reflecting the choices that you're making. So her character is a little bit flexible here, not too defined, but definitely more defined than protagonists of these choose your own adventure narratives tend to be. Usually they're a bit more of a blank slate, so you can, you know, make your own choices. Whereas here, no, this is the Barbie character. She has those fundamental Barbie characteristics, but you're kind of choosing where those lead.
And depending on where you choose, some characters get more developed while others are just thrown to the background.
Yeah.
So, and through my playthrough, Brooklyn was barely a character in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I don't think I interacted much with Skipper at all. I kind of forgot she was there.
And I was like,
Yeah, you
sisters
sidelined
gotta
Ken.
stick together. We're going for the dogs. And so I think I had a lot more Skipper. But yeah, it's interesting what you were saying though about Malibu Barbie. And like, I think she probably was one of the characters maybe I in a way paid the least attention to, her actual character personality or things like that. And I guess it's because she is the character that you're basically playing as. So you are her, you're thinking about the other characters more than necessarily her, other than like these are the things that she wants. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
And there are certain decisions you make. If you see her vision of the future, that's a big character moment for her, of being like, no, I want to have both my relationships and my career, which really good message for the story, to be like, hey, you can pursue both of those, even though you are in the game choosing, like, the quote unquote best ending is her having both her relationship and her career.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's certain. I think one of the big character moments is on the Ferris wheel. If you choose to be in a relationship with Ken, then you get a bit more of sort of Barbie and her backstory with Ken and their relationship there. But that is, of course, that's one of these flexible choices where her character arc changes if you go in that direction. Versus if you don't go in that direction, then her character arc changes in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was just impressed that they gave her a character arc at all, because it's difficult to do when you're doing
Mm-hmm.
one of these stories that the audience is choosing these decisions. But I thought they did a good job of giving her an arc without making it too rigid that it felt like the game was pushing you in one direction or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but besides that, she's pretty much just the Barbie we know from everything else. Yeah, Brooklyn Barbie up next.
Yeah, I feel like maybe if I had seen some more of the other Barbie movies where she's in them, like I don't know, it was just like, oh, this person's cool. Like seems to like be very chill about just what's going on, especially with like her career is like just as wrapped up in this as Barbie's is. Um, but even when I made decisions that weren't, benefiting what she was hoping we would be doing, she was just like very chill about it. And I think like I was expecting her to be like pushing back a little bit more because I don't know, we focus a lot on like Barbie's got this big audition, but it's like both these Barbies got this big audition, and so yeah.
This probably would have been like a difficult thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it would have been interesting if whichever direction you chose to go with, if you went more on the Ken side of thing, or if you went more on the Brooklyn side of thing, that the other character would have a different arc depending on those stories than just being sidelined for most of the film. And so it is difficult because you have to think of a different story and just trying to make it match well. But yeah, because of that, I don't have much to say about Brooklyn because she got sidelined for my Ken arc.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about her either, other than I don't know. I really enjoyed her as a character, and I feel like she brought a lot of fun and energy to the story. And I loved her ghost story telling. That was an amazing moment there.
Yeah, she's one of those characters which, yeah, she gets explored a bit more in depth throughout the shows and the movies a little bit. She tends to be sort of the character who's more likely to get sidelined than Malibu Barbie. Just I think because Malibu Barbie has been the Barbie for what 39 movies, and then Brooklyn Barbie shows up. Um, but yeah, there is something there of like it does to a certain extent feel like Malibu Barbie is the only character who has agency in this story, and that's just something that's an interactive narrative thing. It's very difficult to give the audience the control over the decisions while also giving the other characters agency in the narrative.
Sure. Yeah.
There are ways to do it, but it tends to be more complex than what a Netflix thing can do. That's more of like the Middle Earth Shadow of Mordor video games, where it's like you have antagonists that are also having arcs parallel to your arc, and it's a whole weird system that is too complex to try and dive into right here. But yeah, we also have Ken. Who, John, it sounds like you interacted with Ken a bit more than.
I guess, yeah. I went more Ken and Skipper. I don't have much to say about Ken. He's Ken.
He's a sweetheart here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen a Ken try and pursue a Barbie in these films.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to take like a look at where it's friends to relationship.
Lovers.
Yeah, quote unquote lovers that we haven't really seen since Barbie Diaries. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was really interesting to see how they had a modern take on it, which was kind of cheesy and lame, but you know.
I will say, like, the picnic that he put together for in Roswell, and then also on the roof of the van, or I guess Barbie put it on the roof of the van. But I was like, whoa, like sexy picnic with hummus, like dang.
And then he goes and sleeps in his separate tent
Yeah,
outside of
exactly.
Barbie. I liked that detail. I have 2 notes on Ken. One being just how delightful I found it, like how completely obsessed he was with Malibu Barbie. Particularly, I wrote down the quote of like when Skipper says, "Who's your best bud, Ken?" And Ken
Aw.
immediately responds, "Barbie, obs." And then also just that I would love to go on a road trip with Ken because he's got like the destinations nailed down.
knows.
I don't like to plan any of that stuff, so just yep, it'd be a good time.
He's got his bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing about Ken is that in the and I like Ken as a character because I ended up siding with him a lot, even though that wasn't my plan going in. But the best thing about his character in this is that in the quote unquote best ending, um, he ends up moving to New York to be with Malibu Barbie because, like, why not?
Yeah, what else is he doing?
Yeah, it's just a flip in that sort of the expected quote unquote relationship dynamics. Where like, yeah, of course Ken can move to New York so Barbie could pursue her career and also have that relationship. Yeah, it's a simple solution to a problem that really isn't all that much of a problem of them being together while she also has her career. And that's just like a nice message to send to kids because you often have like the classic Beauty and the Beast arc where, you know, Belle starts the movie, she wants adventure in the great wide somewhere, and then you could argue that the movie is her adventure, but it's just that little bit of unsatisfactory thing of like she wants adventure but then she settles for a guy. Whereas here, no, it's like, why can't she have both the adventure of this career and this musical experience and also have the guy?
Yes.
Yeah, ¿por qué no los dos?
Wasn't that a conflict in Princess and the Pauper?
Yes, that was, and Princess and the Pauper had a smart solution to it as well.
Oh yeah,
where
they like put off their
yep,
yeah.
yeah, I like this one even more because it's swapping the sort of the quote unquote traditional gender norm is that, oh, the woman will follow the man around. So I like the swapping of it and putting that on, and it fits with Ken's character. Just as he's established, he is a character who is devoted to Barbie. So why wouldn't he move to New York to be with her?
She is his oxygen, you know?
Yeah.
Whoa.
What other reason does he have?
Yeah. Now I think the person who gets the least development, I think kind of no matter which arc you go on, though maybe not, is Skipper. Now, Emma, you said you were focusing more on Skipper throughout. What did you see more of her character, or was she still kind of a little bit sidelined even when you were siding with her?
Yeah, I would say I think she didn't get a whole ton of development in general. I think I probably was focusing more on her desires or motivations. I think because it was a bit of like, well, this is, you know, what we set out to do this trip for. And also, like, I want these dogs to get to good homes. So I was kind of siding with that. But as far as her character, we didn't get a lot more than, other than that, I thought, you know, this is a kid who's doing some really cool stuff. And like, just the fact that she created this app, like this little dating app type situation for dogs and owners, I just thought was brilliant and also very funny. But yeah, there's I don't think I got a whole lot about her other than like this is this thing she's doing. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are moments where her character shines through, and if you don't get the diner scene, then you miss a little bit of that where she has this sort of like mini conflict with Barbie where she's like, why are you focusing on I think it's in the express route that this happened. So why are you focusing on the audition? Why aren't you helping me with my app? And then you can make a decision to either focus more on the app or focus more on getting to New York. But Skipper understands you no matter which decision you make. So, in fact, they frame it as Skipper's decision because they're like, oh, Barbie and Skipper will say it at the same time. So if you choose the focus on the app, then they both say the app. If you choose focus on getting to New York, they both say New York. So kind of any guilt you might feel for which choice you make there is lifted in a way that is maybe not accurate to the characters, but sort of serves the function of this as like a lighthearted Barbie adventure.
did some of you get the experience where Skipper ends up talking to like an investor about the app?
No.
I didn't
know. Random.
Where was
Really?
that?
Okay, that was in New York as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it's their talent agent person, Rafa, right? Who actually, I believe, calls with the connection about the investor. Like, hey, I have somebody who might be interested in this app. You should come check it out. So then that's actually a sweet moment of like Malibu Barbie going with Skipper to this investor meeting. The app crashes right as they get there and she's panicking. Skipper's panicking. You know, it could take an hour to reboot the app, whatever. And then the way that I played it, she decides to reboot the app and Malibu Barbie calls in Brooklyn Barbie to come in as a distraction and they perform their song
Oh my
for the
gosh.
investor who's kind of confused, but then it works and they get the app up in time for the investor. So
That's great.
yeah, that was sort of a sweet sister moment.
Yeah, I chose that Barbie had a plan B, which was apparently she already had an advertisement edited together, and they showed that to the investor who was like all in and all that fun jazz. How that happened, I don't know.
All that downtime in the van.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it is interesting because I didn't get that investor meeting at all in any of the playthroughs I did. And I would assume that's the way to unlock the ending where Malibu moves to Malibu to help with the business. Yeah, we have side characters. I think Rafa is really the only one who shows up more than once, or the aliens if you get the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's been around since Big City Big Dreams, and he's sort of a or like third lead of one of the shows. He is one of the more overtly queer coded characters in any of the Barbie movies because he's like a fashion designer and he has a line about the only labels we care about here are designer. But it's very like Disney, like almost exactly the character from Cruella down to be like the fashion designer who doesn't care about labels.
Speaking of queer characters, did anybody else notice the lesbian moms at Roswell?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the dog that they give to a family in Roswell that's got two moms.
Okay.
Oh, totally missed that one.
I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's a good catch. I didn't.
Yeah.
Sort of sneaking it in the background there.
Yeah,
It's
some crumbs.
Did you catch the background gag of some characters from Dreamhouse Adventures being chased by pigeons with pizza?
On the beach?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
I didn't know the.
I saw the pizza and the pigeons, but I didn't know that those were characters from something else.
That's from the TV show, which has way too many characters. And they were all in the Princess Adventure movie, even though they didn't need to be. Yeah. There were some other... I like the vampire person. He was fun. But yeah, a lot of just like characters who show up for one scene and then Jacinda, the pop singer, if you follow the right route, you can actually encounter her in Las Vegas, and she has a moment
Oh.
there.
Wow.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, I gave the characters a 4 out of 5. I think you need to have good characters for this kind of interactive narrative to work since it's so character focused, and I thought these were good characters.
Also gave a 4.
I give it a 3.3. Like I mentioned earlier, some characters got sidelined if you just chose one path. I'm sure that if you were to just go through all of it, it'd be better. But like, who's gonna take the time except for Jay?
I didn't even see all of the endings, so not even me. Yeah, the rest of us gave the characters a 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, up next we have the animation, and John, we have to talk about Ken's haircut.
Well, see, Ken has looked weird in every appearance.
So the model they chose for Ken, starting with Dolphin Magic and going through all of these TV shows and all of these recent movies, is just like very bland. And then they give him this haircut, which I don't know how to deal with, because I watched not only the Barbie movies, but then I also watched a season and a half of Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures. I ambivalent watched it, which is like hate watching, but for something you're ambivalent about.
Okay, I get that.
So but I got to know this Ken and his hair, and then he shows up it's actually in Barbie It Takes Two, the TV show, and he has a new haircut, and it just broke my brain.
No.
And I don't know how to deal with his haircut. So that's my note on the animation here is Ken's haircut.
I had to look it up. I could not remember what it was.
It's not bad. It gives him more personality than his other haircut does.
What did the other one
But-
look like?
Here, I can find it since we're talking about it. The other haircut is like very generic Ken, and this haircut is not. But this haircut gives a very different character. Like, it's like a bad boy haircut, but he's not a bad boy. He's I don't know how to deal with it.
It's got kind of like a pompadour.
Yeah, Ken's hair is okay. Oh, that's not a full size image. There we go.
Oh, interesting.
Like that fits his character a little bit
That just
better
looks
than
like a very normal haircut.
Yeah.
Mhm.
rather than the spike. Anyway, onto the actual animation.
I thought the dogs looked really weird sometimes.
Mm.
Kind of creeped me out a little bit, to be honest.
It's a problem since Diamond Castle
That's
with those
right.
dogs.
I was gonna say though, these dogs are a huge step up from the Diamond Castle dogs. And just in general, comparing this animation to Diamond Castle, because that was the last Barbie movie I have watched, massive improvements on this across the board, just stunning. So to me, I was very impressed with the animation on this one because I had kind of a low bar coming in. But in particular, I made note of the hair. I feel like the character's hair looked very nicely animated
Barbie
to me.
Brooklyn's hair was
Yeah.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they have, since Diamond Castle, they have actually started animating like strands of hair rather than just one block of hair. So actually Diamond Castle, they might have had like a couple like clumps of hair, but now it's full on. For me, it was, since we've been tracking this, John and I have been watching as the animation develops over time.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was a little bit of a step down from the last one from Mermaid Power. That one actually has really good hair because it's all underwater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
But
the animation is like a lot of it is the same in these past few films because like it's the same continuity in series, but like this one's a bit of a step down. Some things are a bit stiffer, but I get it. It's interactive, not a feature film.
This is more on par with the TV show than it is with Mermaid Power. But yeah, as you were saying, John, this is not only is it interactive, apparently they did 136 minutes versus their
Yeah.
normal 60 minutes for one of these movies. So I'm not going to ding them too much for not having that same level of quality because they have to animate so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there might even be times where it's like, because there's in the diner, you can choose between waffles or pancakes. So they have to swap out which model gets, whether it's the waffles or the pancakes. So you have to animate both those scenes. And so, yeah, I liked a lot of just the diversity of the settings here.
Yeah, definitely.
And each one has like a distinct vibe. Like New Orleans, it's nighttime, but it's vampires and it's cool. And then Roswell is like, it's also nighttime, but it's the aliens and the desert. And
I liked how just smooth the transition in between each choice really was. Like after a while, you start to tell like, okay, this is the in between animation. But like for the most part, it was like a smooth transition. It's like, man, like the page isn't refreshing to a new thing; it's just going straight into it.
Yeah.
The only part where I felt like it didn't match was when we went to New Orleans, and it was weird. It was the scene where after we see the vampire, the version I saw, the music just cut and switched to something else. And I think that this was like the transition from if you had read the story or if you had not read the story.
Yeah.
That was probably what was messed up there. So
Yeah, I remember getting that the second time I watched through once I had actually heard the story. There was a little bit of like a disconnect. But yeah, there is behind under the hood what they're doing is when it's getting close to a decision, they actually have both choices like loaded up. So actually if you're using an old enough device, they won't be able to play these interactive movies and like Apple TVs can't play it.
Yeah, I noticed I don't know if it was my computer, but I had to open Netflix. Oh, I guess you just, because I normally have Netflix on like an app on my computer, and I couldn't do it there. I had to open it up on like my web browser instead. But I guess, yeah, you just normally do that. So you didn't come to it.
Yeah, it is sort of the technology because it has to have both of those simultaneously there. And then what it does, and you probably figured it out after a little bit, but they have, so there's, while you're making the decision, the stuff going on is pretty much unimportant. It'll be characters will be discussing the two decisions, and then there will be like a bit of time that's just like, oh, the dad's singing random stuff from the song, so that you have time to choose it without sort of being taken out of the narrative. This has come from a very long way from the 1967 version of this, where the movie stops and a moderator walks out on stage and says, do you want this one or that one? No, this is integrated into the experience. And then depending on your choice, it decides which one to keep going with. But there is, even before that decision goes through, there's actually a little bit after you've made the decision, but before the scene actually starts, there's a little bit that's always the same, a little chunk, so it has time to do all of the things, because it's also keeping track of, did you read the story way back when? Did you encounter the aliens? What's the next decision gonna be?
It'd be so interesting to see like what the the quote unquote back end of something like this looks like, of kind of the web of possible outcomes.
Yeah. And I couldn't find one for this one. There are, I may show you after this. There's one for Netflix's Bandersnatch. It's just lines going everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Maybe you could make one for this.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I tried, but it got too, because there's too many things of like, if you encounter the aliens, then it changes this, and if you encounter the book, then it changes that. So it's there's too many variables for me to like. I would have to spend time on it, which I could, but
you don't want to.
not particularly.
3 hours is enough time to have dedicated to this movie yet.
Yep.
And you spent a whole year on a podcast. Why not spend some more on this line chart?
Yeah, a line chart that is going to be of no use to anyone.
Well, the Barbie Wiki could have it,
Yeah, they already have a list of the endings and how to get them. That's fine.
Oh.
Wow.
Yes. So yeah, and other thoughts on animation? I think Emma, you mentioned this, the background stuff happening. That was
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed just the general like attention to detail in the backgrounds,
yeah.
whether that was funny things going on or just, all the tourists at the different places where they were, and kind of what you already said of like the way that you really felt that you were in that place based on the animation and the atmosphere.
Yeah. I gave the animation a 3 out of 5. Again, comparing it to Mermaid Power, it's like the quality is down, but I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it a 3.5 because I was like, this is unremarkable. But that's also, not a bad thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And I gave it a 4 because I was really blown away in comparison to Diamond Castle. So
I go to 3.5, where it was still solid enough, but it was less than previous films.
Yeah. I think all of those are fair assessments of this. Because it is, there is a bit of a like, if you're coming in from Diamond Castle, then yeah, the animation is so much better.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, just it is kind of nice to be reminded of, oh yeah, they've come a long way with this animation. So yeah, next up we have the voice acting, which a lot of returning cast here from other projects from the whole franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's a question we've been asking all of our guests recently. Did Malibu Barbie sound like Barbie to you? As in your version of Barbie in your head, did Malibu Barbie match up with
I
that?
do think she sounded slightly different.
And I don't know that I have a Barbie inside my head to compare it to.
I will say, like, my exposure to Barbie is mainly just this one, the Diamond Castle, and then the ones that I grew up with were Princess and the Pauper, Swan Lake, and Fairytopia.
Which yeah,
So those are older ones.
and those all have the same voice actor playing Barbie.
Okay.
Here we have America Young, who has been Barbie for quite a few of the movies and then all of the TV shows. So for me, I don't even register her anymore. It's like she automatically sounds like Barbie to me. But when
Well,
yeah,
she just doesn't sound like Barbie.
I
me.
agree with you. With America Young specifically, I agree with you.
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
agreed with you from when she first showed up. But then as I've watched so much of this, it's just like, oh no, she's Barbie now.
Yeah, she's our 5th Barbie in this series.
Yep.
Wow.
Fifth voice actor. I need to not be a voice actor.
5th voice actor.
That 5 is both quite a few people and then also not that many for how many movies there are.
And TV shows.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we also have I like to bring up Greg Chun, who plays Barbie's father, Malibu Barbie's father, because he plays Ike, my main in Super Smash Bros. So
I think it's funny, like, looking at this list and noticing that the same guy is, oh my gosh, where did it go? The same guy is, what's his name? Rafa?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And the goat herder, because both of them, I was like, this person is putting on an accent and they're not doing a great job at it.
so this is something we've never talked about, John, is Rafa's accent.
I was spent the first 5 minutes of our interactions with him trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I was like, what is this guy's accent supposed to be? But the goat herder, I was like, this guy is not Scottish. Whatever actor is playing this guy is obviously not Scottish.
So my thing with Rafa is the actor is either trying to do a New York accent I'm familiar with and not quite getting there, or trying to do a New York accent that I'm unfamiliar with and nailing it.
Oh.
And see, I was hearing some attempted British accent in there.
Yeah, I feel like there was kind of a few things going on.
Yeah. I don't know. It's either like trying to do an accent that is more well known and not quite hitting it, or just absolutely nailing a very specific
Very
kind. Because
niche accents.
I have had that before where it's like Dragon Quest 11. I don't know. I haven't played anything except that one, so I don't remember the number. There was a character where I'm like, wow, this actor is just not doing a good British accent. And then I looked into it. It's like, oh, it's a Swedish actor doing a Swedish accent. I was just
Oh.
interpreting it as a bad British accent, but no, it's a good Swedish accent. So I feel like it could be a similar thing here if it's just an accent I'm not familiar with.
Right, could be.
Could be. He
John,
could just
you
be.
have. Oh, go ahead.
You know, I just picture him as like New York, but like a Latin New York.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what the actor is going for.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't live in New York, so I don't have enough context to know. You know, it sounds off to my ears, but who knows?
It's probably off. I mean, we've had Canadian voice actors for most of these films. Like, who knows at this point?
Yeah, we've had some dodgy accent work. His work is better than some of the other. There was some early Indian characters played by non-Indian actors, which is always a bit leans a bit too hard into sort of the stereotypes of that accent. And then we've had Canadian actors doing Spanish accents, and not all of them were. For Barbie, Mariposa.
Oh, jeez.
And half of the characters call her Mariposa. But not that good of a Spanish. I don't have a good Spanish accent. My Spanish accent there was better than Barbie Mariposa. But yeah, better than the Canadian bat. That was a bridge too far. And that was a Canadian actor doing a Canadian accent for a character that did not need to be Canadian. It was an evil henchman in a fantasy movie. Was like the stereotypical
like,
Canadian.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh boy, evil witch. I can't quite do the Canadian accent. But...
Oh, man.
Now, Bethany, you mentioned a thought for the voice acting. Was it
Oh,
Rafa?
it was Rafa, and I was just like, with this goat herder, I was like, okay, A, why does this goat herder have to have a Scottish accent? And B, this is a terrible attempt at a Scottish accent.
There aren't goat herders in the U.S.
There
too?
most certainly are.
I guess. Yeah, they all came here from Scotland, apparently.
Yeah, I don't think anyone stood out to me too much here. But again, these are all voices that I'm familiar with through the TV shows and through the other movies. So yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think I would say probably Brooklyn Barbie was my favorite voice actor. Not for like I don't have super specific reasons other than just I really enjoyed her delivery, and I think a lot of it boils down to, as I said previously, the ghost story, reading around the campfire. That was a great moment, and I appreciated it.
And that's Tatiana Varia playing Brooklyn Barbie. So yeah, I gave the voice acting a 4 out of 5. I thought it was good. I think there is a certain complexity in these interactive things where you're recording more lines and sort of similar lines but slight differences. So
Yep, I also gave it a 4. Thought it was pretty solid.
So did I.
I gave it a 3.5. There you go.
Yep, that's often our average score. It's a little better than halfway there. It acknowledges the effort put in. So yeah, last up we have the music, which I thought was pretty solid.
Fine,
like there's some moments where it captures that sort of epic road trip feel, but maybe doesn't stand out as much as some of the other.
Yeah, when I was like getting to the point of like thinking about how I wanted to rate these things, I was racking my brain, and other than like their song, could not recall any of the music from this movie.
Yeah, and depending on the branch, you hear that song a lot of times. But there are different variations on it. So
Or you don't really hear the full song; you just hear the short song.
yeah, how many of you heard the short song at the fair?
Yes.
I did.
Yes, that was very funny.
It reminded me a bit of Scott Pilgrim.
You know, it
Aw.
was interesting that we were getting an electric guitar sound from a good acoustic guitar.
What magic is this?
Oh, that's
Now,
awesome.
for context for Bethany and anyone in the audience who hasn't listened to the short song, they do this big build up, and then the entirety of the song is "I know a song and it's very short."
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, because I was wondering, because I did the long song and I was like, this is the long song? Like, it was like 1 minute long.
It's very reminiscent of the Scott Pilgrim. Our
Mhm.
next song is called "I Am Sad." I am so very, very sad. So sad.
Yeah, for the music on this, I think going into it, for some reason, I was expecting it to be a musical, which,
Diamond Castle is.
yeah, I guess I was like, all Barbie movies are musicals, right? But no, it was not a musical, and so I think because of that, I was expecting there to be more songs, and so I wasn't listening to the soundtrack, like
Yeah.
background score as much. But yeah, I thought the short song was pretty funny. And then I did like the what little bits of that road trip song we got to hear too, the Jacinda song. That did sound like it would be a bop, but
Mhm.
I would have enjoyed maybe hearing a little bit more of that because I think I heard like 10 seconds total with the route that I went. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one you have to get to the audition and get the right audition, and yeah, I don't know all of the things that I think for some reason I wrote that there's finally a song with a rap portion that is well integrated, because that's been an issue with several of the ones before, but I don't know which song that is. So I'll just put that out into the ether. That's what I thought. And I don't know which song I was referring to because I wrote these notes a while ago on my first playthrough. So I don't know what
Was
I
it
was.
the dad?
Must have been. No. I think it was the big song, but I'm trying to remember if there's actually a rap portion or if I was just like tired.
Just thought of one in your head, yeah.
Did I invent one?
Finally, a song with rap as well integrated.
Yeah. Because usually it's Skipper, and usually it's like it's that thing that every musical has to do at least once since Hamilton is like try and put a rap verse into every song. Usually sung by the ethnic minority character, though. In the Barbie movies, it's often Skipper. And usually it's like not very good. But apparently this one had a good one. I don't know which one it is, but that is.
It's out there somewhere.
So yeah, I gave the music a 4 out of 5. It was fine. I liked the main song, but the rest of it was just kind of forgettable.
Yeah, and I did a 3, I think just because there wasn't a lot of super memorable music for me. So it wasn't bad, like noticeably bad by any means, but it didn't stand out either.
That's exactly why I also gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3.5. It was fine.
But yeah, that leaves our final scores. I have a 19.5 out of 25, which is a 78% or a 3.9 on our 5-star scale, which I had fun with this one. I enjoyed it. I don't know if it's quite like upper echelon, but it's there. The interactive stuff really brings it beyond, but there's more than just the active stuff. There's also the themes going on here that I really appreciated.
My final score was a 16.8, which is a 67% or a 3.36 5-star rating, which has been what I've been giving most of them in these past few films. Yeah.
Yep, makes me putting together the rankings difficult because you give everything the same score.
I mean, they gotta start doing more stuff. It's the exact same now.
My final score ended up an 18.5, which is a 74%, or a 3.7 out of 5, which feels apt. This was like, it was okay. C's get degrees, am I right?
Yep.
And my final score, I got some nice round numbers here. The total is a 20, which gives it an 80% and a 4 out of 5. And yeah, I honestly had a really great time going through this. I also didn't get stuck in any like dead ends, so I just kind of breezed through and had fun with it. So it was an all-around enjoyable experience for me.
You, remarking about dead ends reminded me. I remember like when I had first finished watching this, like finally came downstairs, and we talked about how like these like time loops, like in other like choose your own adventure kind of stories, sometimes the characters die, and so in either of these, what if Barbie and Ken died?
I mean, when they fall through the trap door at the house, that's kind of
implied.
Yeah, well, it's not implied in any way. No, they literally fall into the scene. But it is, a different choose your own adventure that's not aimed at young audiences the way. Well, I guess choose your own adventure is, but like, you could totally see that being a death moment in one. And I think they're actually, because that sort of style of it is so prevalent, that I think they're actually the loops here, they're trying to find a way to not have it be death. That's the issue. The other big one that I've played, the Netflix one, is Bandersnatch, and that one has multiple deaths that you can end up with. And that one's also like super meta. Like at one point, depending on the path you take, the character realizes that he's not making his own decisions.
Oh, gosh.
That someone's making them for him. It's a weird one. That one is like, comparing that to this one was such a better experience, like playing through this Barbie one, of like having actual characters with arcs and not have it being like a Black Mirror subversive. Oh, we're gonna, which I like Black Mirror and I like that subversive stuff, but it is, it's nice to just have like, here's a nice story and everyone gets along, and no matter what you choose, you kind of end happily, and no character becomes aware that someone is making their decisions for them, and you don't have to think about that.
Although that would have been kind of a fun twist.
Yeah, maybe you should play the Netflix's Bandersnatch.
The only thing that I haven't said yet is that I'm so glad that Ella and Bella, the sister dogs, were not separated.
Yes.
I would have cried if they were sent to different homes. And for a while there, the route I was taking, it seemed like they were just happily going to send them in different directions. I was like, what? I've been too invested in this dog plot line for you to just separate these sisters. But then they were reunited. So that was a good ending.
Now, before we do the outro, you now have to decide, our guests here, who is going to read the outro. Will it be John or Jay?
You ready?
Okay,
3, 2, 1, Jay.
Jay.
Yay! We did it!
Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to follow us on social media. We are Binging Barbie Podcast on Instagram, at Binging Barbie on Twitter, and Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast, on Letterboxd. We also have a Tumblr. You can find that through our link tree. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm sure if you look up Binging Barbie Podcast, it'll show up. I always forget to plug it because I don't understand Tumblr. It's a weird site that I haven't figured out, but it's there. We get engagement on that sometimes. So, and like, leave us comments or likes or stuff. We like to hear from you. And we will be back next week with our last animated Barbie movie episode.
Oh yeah,
getting to the end here. The most recent Barbie movie, the title, Barbie, Skipper and the Big Babysitting Adventure.
Just sticking the Barbie label on this.
When I told John this title live on the podcast. I don't remember which episode it is, but you can go back and try and find his reaction to the big babysitting adventure.
Oh, I thought you guys were getting all worked up about Barbie : Skipper.
Well, that too. Though we have had Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus.
Oh,
The title
I
that's
think
a
I
good
had
movie.
that on DVD.
Oh, cool.
Oh my gosh, there was a little game that went with it. Okay, anyway.
Did you have the 3D DVD?
Yes, I did.
Anyway, before we sign off,
Was
I
it
just
this
want to
DVD?
say
Oh, I can't see it.
here
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
I have a whole saga of trying to get, because I wanted to see the 3D, and they only the old style DVDs have it, so I had a whole saga of trying to get that. But anyway, we're already going a bit long. I did just want to quick say that because of your choices throughout the episode, the podcast turned out so well that John and I have actually moved to London to pursue our podcasting
That's
career.
so exciting.
So good job, you made us go to London.
Yay.
I do wonder what would have happened if you had made different decisions. Would we still be back in Malibu? See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.